And the three top girls not very far apart. This is the approach now to the climb of the Ode Barn. This is the easy bit, by the way, Paul. It looks as though Desaunay is in all sorts of trouble.
Well, it looks as if he's had a problem with his chain there. Just flicks it round to get the chain back on. I don't think he was on the small chainring at the time, though, which makes the chain very, very slack. And it looks as if the group now has started to come back up to him.
Fred Salmon passing to the picture. This is Steve Dowse. And there's quite a gap now opening up amongst those front runners as they spread out. They'll go across this field and then they'll start the climb, as the leaders are doing here, up towards the woodland and then up to the top of Ode Barn. This is the feared climb. It's impossible to ride it, and very soon the leaders are going to be off the bikes as well. There's Sian Roberts going through. She's riding very well today. She's expected to win the title today, and she's made an excellent start. And there is Debbie Morell, who seems to be riding a lot better now she's onto the climbs. Former rock climber, Paul, and how she's doing it on a bike.
Well, she is, and she's doing very well as well, because she's beating a lot of men at the moment. As we go back to the front here, you can see the leaders now having to get off and run. This is where the difference is made on the course, because it's very, very hard. The riders having to get off and run and push the bikes at certain times just to keep the momentum going.
The pace being set by Fred Salmon, who will find the Highlands of Scotland are just as challenging as the hillsides of Derbyshire. And just look at the queue further down the slope. This is absolutely amazing. You can see now the gradient, as those with no ambition to share in the £5,000 prize list, they're thinking simply of finishing the course. This is the high spot, 1,400 feet, looking over the Rothimercus estate. What a wonderful place to live. As the leaders make the turn at the top. The helicopter, by the way, brought all the water up here the day before. Some 100 litres or so ready for the riders when they came up today.
Well, as we look down the column of riders there trying to get up, everybody's just at the moment trying to get up. It's very difficult to overtake at this part of the course, which is why you have to have a prologue the day before so that the seeded riders have a chance of having a ride without too many problems.
Not too many surprises amongst the leaders at the moment. Mike Closer we expected to challenge. Fred Salmon perhaps is a little bit of a surprise. A very good cyclocross rider on the national squad in the British team. But this is a totally different type of racing for him.
Well, as Mike Closer leads now through the gully, we're beginning the descent, a very dangerous descent down to the deer farm. And Closer just slipping there. You see, you've got to really start this descent at the front, because you have a chance then to see any of the dangers, the hidden rocks, because you've just got to catch one of those rocks with your front wheel, and the front wheel can go completely away from you.
So this is Closer. Steve Dowse is fighting, but hanging on to the Flying American. And in the far distance there in third place was Fred Salmon. That's Steve Dowse throwing his bike on the ground. 6 times a British cyclocross champion. Here's Fred. And Chris Young is the rider to the right of our picture, and I think it's Paul Hinton he's coming up against here.
Chris Young recovering after a bad start and moving up through the field. In the pink shorts there is Tim Davis as well, the West Welsh cyclocross champion.
Over the rocks then for Glenn Coltman, who's running on quite well. He's here actually to keep an eye on Sally Hibbard, his teammate, who's doing extremely well at the moment in the women's race. And now come the problems for those behind. This is Kevin Sabiston, himself a very good cyclocross rider in the northeast of England. Cyclocross, by the way, similar, oh dear me, somebody's gone down there on the rocks. Cyclocross sport is the similar sport to mountain bike riding, except you tend to do it on small circuits of a couple of miles or so, not the massive circuit this is of over 30 kilometres, and there's all sorts of trouble here for the girls as well. One of the boys has gone down, and this is Sian Roberts, who's come across the tumble, but she hasn't been interfered with. She's making a gentle descent on the way down. And that's Sally Hibbard going down just in front of her there, so she's got in front of Sian Roberts now. Great battle between the three girls. They really are the best exponents we have in Britain, and this is what happens when things don't work out for you today.
But when you're out on the moorlands, you've got to do it all yourself, and the rider there having to change time. Maybe it's going to take him a minute and a half, but he'll get back into the race and carry on.
So this is poor old Robert Lamont, who's out of luck, as we look down now on the estate as the leaders make their way through. Into the water again, Mike Closer showing us the technique, and Steve Dowse is keeping much closer a line on him now, and so too is Fred Salmon. Salmon's come up nicely in third place. So all three riders are almost back together again now. See how they get on and join us after the break. And welcome back to the Rothiemurcus Estate and the UK Mountain Bike Championships. One of the major problems today facing the competitors, the crossing of all of the rivers. So we asked Paul Hinton from Auckland, did he have a feeling of pleasure or fear of their approach?
More pleasure than anything. Obviously before a race we would actually go out and have a look at the race, and check the course out, even if it is a long course, because even one obstacle can end the race for you, so you have to have a look at the course fully.
Now, when you approach a river or a stream, because, you know, like today, the water's running a bit quick and it can be quite deep, you don't know what's down there, do you? I mean, how do you go into the water?
Depending on how deep it is. I mean, like today, there's one section here I could probably ride it, but I'd have to be going pretty fast down here, depending on how deep, how fast it's running and what the rocks are like. This type of ground is okay to run on, so I might be able to get through. Some people dismount. Obviously, they would have figured that out before the race,
right?
When they've checked the course out.
Now, once you're in there on the bike, you're in loose stone here in Scotland, but it could be moss. You don't know what's down there, do you? I mean,
you just change down, select the lower gear, and just keep on pedaling. That way, it would normally get you through. You may hit a rock with the front wheel, and it'll just skip you off, but that's a chance you've got to take.
Have you fallen off in the water?
Yes, plenty of times. We don't really like getting wet, obviously, because cold water on hot muscles makes you cramp. Right. And when that happens on a long race, when you're stuck out the back, it's not very nice at all.
You shouldn't imagine it is, Paul. Well, this is where we are at the moment, down by Loch and Ellen on the southern end of the circuit. And by the way, it was on the loch where the first ospreys nested here in Scotland. Well, we're back. We're just behind the leaders. We've got Chris Young. There's Paul Hinton going through, showing us how to get through the water. And these three riders, and it's Tim Davis coming into view here at the moment, are chasing still Mike Closer, Fred Salmon and Stephen Dowse. Welsh cyclo-cross champion, Tim. And this is Raymond Desonnet, the early leader, Paul. He's fallen back a bit.
Well, I think after that problem he had with his chain, he probably slipped back through the field a little bit, but he's got going and he's still in contention at the moment.
Now a chance to admire the beautiful estate here at Rothiemurcus, which apart from anything else, it has roe deer and red deer running across the estate, and it also has one or two tired mountain bike riders. It's a question now of picking your bike up and running. This is David Roberts here, who, by the way, is the husband of Sean Roberts, who is doing very well in the women's section at the moment, and David himself isn't too far behind the pace setters of this race. And this is Alistair Martin from Northern Ireland, who is also coming up towards the front runners. That's a little bit of a surprise. And it seems a hard slog for many of the rest now as they come through the stream here. The race is now spread out, Paul, over at least 35 minutes.
Well, it is, and a lot of the riders at the back of the race here have just got to get through these obstacles as best as they can. Here we're back at the front of the race, though, and the pace is really hotting up.
It's Closer who's setting the pace, being challenged by Steve Dowse. Fred Salmon, who's hovered just behind them, but he's up with them again now. And it looks as though Steve Dowse is also putting in a good challenge. Dowse has never seen a mountain bike course until yesterday, when he finished second in his heat behind Closer. And it looks as though he's on a good one again now.
Dowse in second place at the moment, and it's a very strange position for him to be in, because if anybody follows a cyclocross in the winter, Steve Dowse nearly always rides his races from the front.
And it looks as though Dowse is going to the front now, Paul, because Dowse is moving cleanly over the shoulder of Mike Closer. Closer, of course, the world champion last year, will not know anything about Steve Dowse, who is also a full-time professional road racing cyclist. So the order now, Dowse, Closer and Fred Salmon not giving an inch to perhaps the more experienced other two riders. Here's Sean Roberts in a little bit of trouble in the water, but still the best of the girls. Sally Hibbert very close to her there in second place. And the Leeds girl, Sally Hibbard, challenging Sean very well indeed. The missing one is Debbie Morell, but she's never too far behind, and there she is.